Letter 94 by Charles Lamb. No date, Feb. 15, 1802. Not a sentence, not a syllable of Trismegistus, shall be lost through my neglect. I am his word banker, his storekeeper of puns and syllogisms. You cannot conceive, and if Trismegistus cannot, no man can the strange joy which I felt at the receipt of a letter from Paris. It seemed to give me a learned importance, which placed me above all who had not Parisian correspondence. Believe that I shall carefully husband every scrap, which will save you the trouble of memory, when you come back. You cannot write things so trifling, let them only be about Paris, which I shall not treasure. In particular, I must have parallels of actors and actresses. I must be told if any building in Paris is at all comparable to St. Paul's, which, contrary to the usual mode of that part of our nature called admiration, I have looked up to with unfading wonder every morning at 10 o'clock, ever since it has lain in my way to business. At noon, I casually glance upon it, being hungry, and hunger has not much taste for the fine arts. Is any night walk comparable to a walk from St. Paul's to Charing Cross for lighting and paving, crowds going and coming without respite, the rattle of coaches and the cheerfulness of shops? Have you seen a man guillotined yet? Is it as good as hanging? Are the women all painted, and the men all monkeys? Or are there not a few that look like rational of both sexes? Are you and the First Consul thick? All this expensive ink I may fairly put you to, as your letters will not be solely for my proper pleasure, but are to serve as memoranda and notices, helps for short memory, a kind of Rumfordizing recollection, for yourself on your return. Your letter was just what a letter should be, crammed and very funny. Every part of it pleased me till you came to Paris, and your damned philosophical indolence or indifference stung me. You cannot stir from your rooms till you know the language. What the devil? Are men nothing but word trumpets? Are men all tongue and ear? Have these creatures, that you and I profess to know something about, no faces, gestures, gabble, no folly, no absurdity, no induction of French education upon the abstract idea of men and women, no similitude nor dissimilitude to English? Why, thou damned smell fungus, your account of your landing and reception, and Bullen, I forget how you spell it, it was spelt my way in Harry the Eighth's time, was exactly in that minute style which strong impressions inspire. Writing to a Frenchman, I write as a Frenchman would. It appears to me as if I should die with joy at the first landing in a foreign country. It is the nearest pleasure, which a grown man can substitute for that unknown one, which he can never know, the pleasure of the first entrance into life from the womb. I dare say, in a short time, my habits would come back like a stronger man armed, and drive out that new pleasure, and I should soon sicken for known objects. Nothing has transpired here that seems to me of sufficient importance to send dryshod over the water, but I suppose you will want to be told some news. The best and the worst to me is that I have given up 2 guineas a week at the post, and regained my health and spirits which were upon the wane. I grew sick, and Stuart unsatisfied. Ludisti satis, tempus aber est, I must cut closer, that's all. In all this time I have done but one thing, which I reckon tolerable, and that I will transcribe, because it may give you pleasure, being a picture of my humors. You will find it in my last page. It absurdly is a first number of a series, thus strangled in its birth. More news. The professor's rib has come out to be a damned disagreeable woman, so much so as to drive me and some more old cronies from his house. If a man will keep snakes in his house, he must not wonder if people are shy of coming to see him because of the snakes. Mr. Fell, or as you, with your usual facetiousness and drollery, call him, Mr. F. Roman II, has stopped short in the middle of his play. Some friend has told him that it has not the least merit in it. Oh, that I had the rectifying of the litany! I would put in a libera nos, scripters videlicet ob amicis. That's all the news. Apropos, is it pedantry, writing to a Frenchman, to express myself sometimes by a French word, when an English one would not do as well? Methinks my thoughts fall naturally into it. Apropos, I think you wrong about my play. All the omissions are right. And the supplementary scene, in which Sandford narrates the manner in which his master is affected, is the best in the book. It stands where a hodgepodge of German puerilities used to stand. I insist upon it that you like that scene. Love me, love that scene. I will now transcribe the Londoner, number 1, and wind up all with affection and humble servant at the end. The Londoner, number 1. In compliance with my own particular humor, no less than with thy laudable curiosity, reader, I proceed to give thee some account of my history and habits. I was born under the nose of St. Dunstan's steeple, just where the conflux of the eastern and western inhabitants of this twofold city meet and jostle in friendly opposition at Temple Bar. The same day which gave me to the world saw London happy in the celebration of her great annual feast. This I cannot help looking upon as a lively type or omen of the future great goodwill, which I was destined to bear toward the city, resembling in kind that solicitude which every chief magistrate is supposed to feel for whatever concerns her interests and well-being. Indeed, I consider myself in some sort a speculative Lord Mayor of London, for though circumstances unhappily preclude me from the hope of ever arriving at the dignity of a gold chain and spittle sermon, yet thus much will I say of myself, in truth, that Whittington himself with his cat, just emblem of vigilance and a furred gown, never went beyond me in affection, which I bear. To the citizens, shut out from serving them in the most honorable mode, I aspire to do them benefit in another, scarcely less honorable, and if I cannot, by virtue of office, commit vice and irregularity to the material counter, I will, at least, erect a spiritual one, where they shall be laid fast by the heels. In plain words, I will do my best endeavor to write them down. To return to myself, from whence my zeal for the public good is perpetually causing me to digress, I will let thee, reader, into certain more of my peculiarities. I was born, as you have heard, bred, and have passed most of my time in a crowd. This has begot in me an entire affection for that way of life, amounting to an almost insurmountable aversion from solitude and rural scenes. This aversion was never interrupted or suspended, except for a few years in the younger part of my life, during a period in which I had fixed my affections upon a charming young woman. Every man, while the passion is upon him, is for a time at least addicted to groves and meadows, and purling streams. During this short period of my existence, I contracted just enough familiarity with rural objects to understand tolerably well ever after the poets, when they declaim in such passionate terms in favor of a country life. For my own part, now the fit is long past, I have no hesitation in declaring that a mob of happy faces crowding up at the pit door of Drury Lane Theatre just at the hour of 5 give me 10,000 finer pleasures than I ever received from all the flocks of silly sheep that have whitened the plains of Arcadia or Epsom Downs. This passion for crowds is nowhere feasted so full as in London. The man must have a rare recipe for melancholy who can be dull in Fleet Street. I am naturally inclined to hypochondria, but in London it vanishes, like all other ills. Often when I have felt a weariness or distaste at home, have I rushed out into her crowded Strand, and fed my humor, till tears have wetted my cheek for unutterable sympathies with the multitudinous moving picture, which she never fails to present at all hours, like the shifting scenes of a skillful pantomime. The very deformities of London, which give distaste to others, from habit do not displease me. The endless succession of shops, where fancy, miscalled folly, is supplied with perpetual new gods and toys, excite in me no puritanical aversion. I gladly behold every appetite supplied with its proper food. The obliging customer and the obliged tradesman, things which live by bowing, and things which exist but for homage, do not affect me with disgust. From habit I perceive nothing but urbanity, where other men, more refined, discover meanness. I love the very smoke of London, because it has been the medium most familiar to my vision. I see grand principles of honor at work in the dirty ring, which encompasses two combatants with fists, and principles of no less eternal justice in the tumultuous detectors of a pickpocket. The salutary astonishment with which an execution is surveyed convinces me more forcibly than 100 volumes of abstract polity that the universal instinct of man, in all ages, has leaned to order and good government. Thus an art of extracting morality from the commonest incidents of a town life is attained by the same well-natured alchemy with which the foresters of Arden in a beautiful country found tongues in trees, books in the running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything. Whereas spleen her food but in London, humor, interest, curiosity, suck at her measureless breasts without a possibility of being satiated. Nursed amid her noise, her crowds, her beloved smoke, what have I been doing all my life, if I have not lent out my heart with usury to such scenes? Reader, in the course of my peregrinations about the great city, it is hard if I have not picked up matter, which may serve to amuse thee, as it has done me, a winter evening long. When next we meet, I purpose opening my budget, till when farewell. What is all this about? Said Mrs. Shandy. A story of a cock and a bull, said Yorick, and so it is, but Manning will take good-naturedly what God will send him across the water, Only I hope he won't shut his eyes and open his mouth, as the children say, for that is the way to gape and not to read. Manning, continue your laudable purpose of making me your register. I will render back all your remarks, and I, not you, shall have received usury by having read them. In the meantime, may the Great Spirit have you in his keeping, and preserve our Englishmen from the inoculation of frivolity and sin upon French earth. Allens, or what is it you say, instead of goodbye? Mary sends her kind remembrance, and covets the remarks equally with me. The reference to the word banker and register is explained by Manning's first letter to Lamb from Paris, in which he says, I beg you to keep all my letters. I hope to send you many, and I may in the course of time make some observations that I shall wish to recall to my memory when I return to England. Are you and the first consul thick? Napoleon, with whom Manning was destined one day to be on terms. In 1803, on the declaration of war when he wished to return to England, Manning's was the only passport that Napoleon signed. Again, in 1817, on returning from China, Manning was wrecked near St. Helena, and waiting on the island for a ship, conversed there with the great exile. Rumfordizing, a word coined by Lamb from Sir Benjamin Thompson, Count von Rumford, the founder of the Royal Institution, the deviser of the Rumford stove, and a tireless scientific and philosophical experimentalist. Smellfungus, in allusion to Sterne's attack on Smollett in The Sentimental Journey, the lamented Smellfungus traveled from Boulogne to Paris, from Paris to Rome, and so on, but he set out with the spleen and jaundice, and every object he passed by was discolored or distorted. The Post, Lamb had been writing criticisms of plays, but Stuart, as we have seen, wanted them on the same night as the performance, and Lamb found this impossible. I have done but one thing, the Londoner, referred to later. The professor's rib, Godwin's second wife, the widow Claremont, mother of Jane Claremont, whom he had married in December, 1801. Fell, author of A Tour Through the Batavian Republic, 1801. Later he compiled a life of Charles James Fox, 1808. Lamb knew him, as well as Fenwick, through Godwin. Apropos, I think you wrong about my play. John Woodville had just been published, and Lamb had sent Manning a copy. Manning, in return, had written from Paris early in February. I showed your tragedy to Holcroft, who had taste enough to discover that 'tis full of poetry, but the plot he condemns in toto. Tell me how it succeeds. I think you were ill-advised to retrench so much. I miss the beautiful branches you have lopped off and regret them. In some of the pages the sprinkling of words is so thin as to be quite outre. There you were wrong again. The Londoner was published in the Morning Post, February 1, 1802. I have quoted the article from that paper, as Lamb's copy for Manning has disappeared. Concerning it, Manning wrote in his next letter, April 6, 1802, I like your Londoner very much. There is a deal of happy fancy in it, but it is not strong enough to be seen by the generality of readers. Yet if you were to write a volume of essays in the same style, you might be sure of its succeeding.